What's going on, guys, and welcome to today's video. And I've got to confess a little bit on the Mercedes. My new wheels and tires that I bought to fix my shake, my shimmy, my bad tire vibration that we did a couple videos ago, it didn't really fix it. Let me explain. So when I got the car, it had the original wheels and 10-plus-year-old tires on the thing. It sat for a long time in Mississippi. Drove it, it had a pretty bad vibration. I drove it more and it kind of got better, but I always assumed the tires were flat spotted and that's what was causing it. So that gave me a really good excuse to buy the 18-inch AMG monoblock wheels. We got some fresh tires and all should have been good in the world, and it kind of was. But then it also kind of wasn't at the same time. Intermittently, you'd just be driving or accelerating and you'd just get a shake or shimmy in the wheel and it would just kind of come and go, which isn't really a tire vibration thing. A tire vibration typically continues, it starts and it kind of continues. This would just come and go. As you were accelerating to 40, 45 miles an hour, you just get a shimmy in the wheel, and once you got kind of past that, it would stop. Again, it was just seemingly very intermittent. But that got me thinking, being a Jeep guy, about death wobble. Now, you may be going, what are you talking about? This is this is not a solid front axle, this is independent suspension, but this is pretty old school underneath. We've got a steering box very similar to a solid axle vehicle with a pitman arm going over to a center link. We've got a idler arm, we've got tie rod ends. It's set up very old truck setup, basically, and there is a steering dampener on that thing. Last time I had it up on the lift at work, crawled underneath, unbolted one end of the steering dampener, and it is absolutely gone. So I think my Mercedes has death wobble. Now, would a new steering dampener probably have taken care of a lot of the issue on the original or old wheels and tires? Yeah, probably, but they were 10 years old, they were dry rot. If I want to drive this thing, we had to get new tires on it. So, the wheels and tires, they're on, but we are hopefully going to be taking care of the death wobble on my Mercedes, and we are going to be fixing the rear wheel fitment. When we put these wheels and tires on, the rears are just sunken in a little bit more than they should be, so we're going to throw the some spacers on the rear and hopefully have the rear looking good and have the front not shaking. So let me go show you the parts and then we'll quickly get these on. Now guys, don't mind the almost full Jeep interior that is torn apart. I definitely don't have it getting that big huge dent pushed out that we got when we were off-roading. So don't mind that. But back to the parts. Now, I guess before we get to this, I wanted to quickly tell you guys about a jump box. I have wanted a jump box for a very long time, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, battery's dead, hook this thing up and it fires the vehicle up. Wanted one forever, but they are pretty darn expensive. The guys over at Top Don, which we have partnered with before on a scan tool, reached out and said, hey, we'd like you to try our jump box. And I was hesitant because there is one really good name brand in the game for jump boxes, and that's what I wanted, but I said, all right, guys, I'll give it a chance, and went ahead and got one. So I've got the JS3000. This is their largest 3000 amp jump box, or jump starter, as they call it. And I have been absolutely beating the heck out of this thing at work, not just on a casual customer basis, in a professional setting, at a shop, jumping tons of dead vehicles. I have been putting it through its paces. I've had it for multiple months now, and I wanted to give a honest, usage report before I mentioned it to you guys. But as far as I can tell, this thing is just as good as the other name brand, and like a lot cheaper, or at least 100+ cheaper than that other brand that's out there. And so far I have not seen any issues with it. Obviously it comes with a charger, comes with the cables that you plug in, so you can obviously hook up to a battery. But the cool thing, like most of them do, they have a USB output, a 3 amp output there. You've got a 2 amp output on the other side, so you can plug in and power and charge your phone, your GoPro, whatever, when you're out on the go. And I've used this when we go off-roading to power or plug in the GoPro. So I've absolutely used the heck out of this thing, and it hasn't skipped a beat. It hasn't let me down yet. So if you're interested in a jump box like I have been forever, but am always kind of nervous about the expensive price, I've been very happy with this thing. Check out the link in the description if you want to at least check them out. Like I said, this is the largest 3000 amp, and I've absolutely loved this thing. So back to Mercedes parts though. So we're going to talk about the cool thing first, our wheel spacers. I did a lot of research on trying to figure out what was the correct size. I ended up with a 15 millimeter spacer for the rear. Now this is my first time messing with lug bolt vehicles versus lug studs like all of my other vehicles. So we are bolting this in between the hub and the wheel, so we are obviously losing 15 millimeters of thread engagement, which is of course never going to work with the factory lug bolts. So I measured my factory lug bolts, and these are 45 millimeter on this W140 S500, and knew I needed to add 15 millimeters to account for my spacer and still have the factory thread engagement into the hub. So I ended up ordering these seemingly ridiculously long 60 millimeter ball seat studs, which are correct for this vehicle. And yeah, so we now have correct thread engagement. We've got our correct hub, hub centering ring on both sides. It fits super snugly. I've already put the other side on just to make sure everything works. So yeah, so I am very excited to be able to throw that on. And then, of course, like I said, Jeeps can't leave me alone. We're replacing a steering dampener on a Mercedes to fix death wobble. And cool enough, there was an option for a Bilstein dampener. That's what we run on all the Jeeps. We've got all of our Bilstein shocks. So I only saw or felt it fitting that a Jeep technician put a Bilstein steering dampener on a Mercedes. Now this was, I believe, an OE part, so it's not like I'm putting some cool upgraded part on it. I just thought it was funny that it was Bilstein. So yeah, let's crawl under the front of this thing and start putting this on. I can show you how ridiculously blown out the factory one is, which, I mean, it should be. It's got 250,000 miles. This thing has 244,000 miles on it now, and then we will get our wheel spacers on, and we'll have a couple more things knocked off the list on this Benz. Okay guys, so up underneath you have a pretty decent picture here of the steering dampener. And yeah, don't mind the other oil leaks. We actually have some valve cover gaskets that finally showed up, so we can get the kind of last massive oil leak taken care of. But we are going to, today at least, get a fresh steering dampener on this thing. Now the cool thing, it looks like they are all the same size bolts. So it looks like we've got 17s on both ends of this thing. All right guys, so here is the new one that again is very stiff all the way in, all the way out, just like they're supposed to be, fully filled with fluid. And again, it is very hard to move that in and out. Now, typically you can tell a steering dampener is bad or going bad if it is leaking and covered in oil, just like this one is. But with this thing's valve cover gaskets leaking as bad as they are, I never really thought to take another glance at the steering dampener because it's covered in oil, but I just assumed it was engine oil. Now, yes, most of this probably is engine oil, but the fact we can take this dampener and move it like this, it is half filled with fluid. So most of the fluid has leaked out, and it is just, you can just freely move the steering dampener in and out. It is absolutely blown, done for. It's it's doing no good under that vehicle. So that's why I am very hopeful that this new one is going to help considerably with our steering or death wobble. So I'm going to crawl back under, throw this thing on, and then we will jump back to the wheel spacers. All right, so now with our new steering dampener on, we are ready to jump onto our rear wheel spacers. Like I said, I already threw one side on just so we could kind of see a immediate before and after at the kind of same time. So here was our fitment originally with those wheels. You can see they've got, again, it's going to be kind of hard to see, but you can see they sink in pretty decently before the fender there. Versus with our spacers on, you can see that wheel and tire is a lot more flush with that fender. So guys, I'm sure this isn't very exciting to most, but it was my first time messing with trying to get fitment dialed in with, you know, lug bolts instead of normal lug nuts. So that's what I'm showing you guys. I guess another thing I did do was paint. Last time I had it in the shop, up on the lift, I painted the brake calipers and the backing plates. So, you know, I'm trying to make it look as good as I can with 250,000 miles here. But back to our wheel spacers. Like I said, we've got our 15 millimeter wheel spacer and then our now 15 extended millimeter studs, which are a total of 60 on this specific vehicle. So we will get our spacer slid over and then try to get all of this lined up without having lug studs to hang your wheel on. And now guys, just like that, we have a lot more flush fitting AMG wheels on this thing. So I guess all that's left is to go out and drive it and see if the steering wheel shakes. I'm kind of nervous because this is hopefully going to take care of it. Okay guys, don't know if you can see me because it is now getting dark out, but I've got to go out and drive this thing. Like I said, it normally does it right around 40, 45 as you're accelerating, so I should quickly be able to know if anything changes with this new steering dampener. So I'm gonna flip the camera around. I know you guys won't be able to feel anything, but we will see. We're going to, like I said, normally around 40 is when this thing would start to do it. Maybe a teeny bit, but I think it's better. There is a little bit maybe still there, but it feels considerably better, but it is not perfect. Well guys, we kind of made it a little bit better, but again, it is still not perfect. Kind of running out of thoughts here. We've got good wheels and tires and we now have a good steering dampener, but we still have a little bit of vibration. I don't know, we're slowly getting things taken care of. Like I said, the steering dampener was absolutely blown. It needed to be replaced regardless, even if it didn't quite take care of all of our issues. Yeah, I don't really know guys, but we got a part replaced. We got our rear wheel fitment looking considerably better. And yeah, I really got to tackle those oil leaks next, but that will be for another day when it's not so darn cold out here in Kansas. And yeah, you guys know I'll be bringing you guys along, and we'll slowly get this thing back to its former glory. But until then guys, thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.